Now let's move on to the next panel discussion on the topic, how are organizations responding to the tech skills transformation?
So good afternoon everyone, and it's a lovely panel. Somebody from the tech side, somebody from talent acquisition, somebody from the EY PAS team with a lot of knowledge, somebody talking on the culture, the soft side of the HR. How are organizations responding to the tech skills transformation? In the recent years, we have seen a number of incidents that have highlighted tech skills transformation. One of the examples recent example I can give is I was talking to a few of the telecom companies, one of the large telcos in Middle East and European region last week. And when I met their business leader and the HR leader, they said, our problem is we are a telco and we have to transform to a techco. Right? So this is our business transformation. Recently, Microsoft invested in this transformation around $1 billion with them. And they gave me an example what Jio is doing in India, telco to techco. And we want to do the same. And we have 19,000 people. And we want to transform the business. So they came up, if you have to transform the business, we have to transform the people. If you have to transform the people, then we have to transform the skills, right? And then the entire conversation started. So my first question around this transformation is, what are your views on creating standards to measure technology skills and their impact on productivity in current and future state? So Shyamakant, would you like to address that from a TA side, and more from a TA side, you are serving to telecom customers, Amdocs, right?
True.
So what are your customers talking to you? Because you're a service provider to them, right?
True. So thank you so much, Sujit and the partner UI team for inviting all the way from Pune. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As you said, we are essentially, we are serving the telcos. We are a product-led service organization. But as you said, the transformation, now think about the transformation in the domain. The telcos are actually aspiring to go to the e-commerce, then from e-commerce to finance, then the finance to media, and then OTT. So there is a plethora of change on the line of business which is happening. Now imagine about the people who are actually the real resource of a company like us. I mean, of course, we have product also, but what we value is the people. And brilliantly what you asked, I think the focus is always going to be people, as you said, and exactly the topic is talking about the transformation in the people skills. So if we don't evolve and make our people transform to adopt the technologies which is in demand, I think most of our services product will perish, and so as we. So I have an approach when we talk about how to kind of make it happen. First and foremost, coming from a talent acquisition background, I think I have this 5 principle, and as you said also yesterday, I'm going to probably give some anecdote about it. And the principle is about 5 Bs. That's very important, when it comes to resource building. First is, you think about buying a resource. Second, you think about borrowing it, which is essentially subcontracting. Buy is, of course, hiring. Third is you talking about building the resource. Fourth is talking about binding the resource. And fifth, which is very important, is bouncing the resource, which is exactly about internal mobility. The moment we adhere to the principle of 5 Bs, I think we can create an ecosystem where we don't have to really worry about what technology is going to come and hit us. Because we're going to be advancedly prepared basis on our line of business. Either we use one of the Bs and ensure that our ecosystem is adhering and is delivering to the customer expectation. Now, from a strategical standpoint, there are a lot of things. I think one of the important things that we have started to really think about seriously about the job intelligence engine, which is essentially, when I'm talking about buying a resource, the field that I belong to, it is not just about a straitjacket approach of going, spraying and praying that the candidate will come. I think it all start about talking about the persona that I'm going to hire. I think somebody mentioned that from role we are changing to skill, but my view is that even from skill we are changing to persona. we are not really looking at a particular role or a particular skills to hire. We're talking about a persona to hire who will eventually be fit for you. Either you trained or you kind of put them on job training, but end of the day, the individual is going to do the job for you.
Just to add to this, so you have created a 5P approach or a standardization in an organization. So, Alpana, when you're talking to your customers as a part of EY Pass and consulting, so what standardization or what methodologies are you recommending or you're seeing other customers adopting in the industry?
First of all, I think to the example that you were giving, moving from a telco to a techco, I think that is very true for clients across industries. I often come across clients which are saying that from retail co to a techco, or from a pharma co to a techco. And with the captives, the GCCs being so prominent in India, I think that is becoming even more common, where the tech center is really leading from the front. The whole innovation and the efficiency improvement for the parent organization. But that apart, to your question on setting standards and how am I seeing clients doing that? First and foremost, I think, yes, it's very important to set the standard also, because if you saw, the first panel was talking a lot about the need for speed, how things are changing on a continuous basis. Now, if we do not set standards, everybody could have their own worldview of what is required. Right? And that could mean that the organization is really not operating like a concerted unit, but everybody, the talent acquisition is going in one direction, the candidate is going in another direction, the strategic leadership is going in another direction. So that would be quite a disaster and also a waste of, very, very precious currency, which is time. So to that extent, I see more and more organizations wanting to create standards which can become the language of providing clarity. It's also about setting expectations correctly. And when you're setting standards, what happens is you do not just look at what is happening on the ground, you stretch your imagination. So it becomes a way of raising the bar to what the potential of the organization can truly be. So it by nature creates an orientation towards transformation, right? Now, how an organization does it could really vary depending on the geography you're operating in, the industry you are in, or even your own organizational strategy. What is that growth cusp that you are right now sitting at, and hence, how do you really want to create your taxonomy? How do you want to create your skill standards? Is it about doing more of what you're already doing or completely getting into a new space? So there could be a number of variables that inform how you go about doing it. But one thing that is very, very clear is that this cannot be a static exercise. And going back to everything...
So are you saying that maybe a few years ago, 4 years ago, when people were still focusing on job roles, and job descriptions while hiring, it was more around still a focus. There were skill taxonomies and ontologies in the organization, but the usage was less. And today, people are referring to those age-old theories once again, because they are required to set us the standards and processes. These are the building blocks today.
I would not say so. See, I think even in the past, some organizations, and you'll always have 20-25% of the organizations who are at the cutting edge or leading edge of practices, right? So there are organizations who have done a great job with taxonomy, but the way we thought about taxonomies 5 years back is very different from the way we are thinking about taxonomies today. How do you cluster and categorize and make your taxonomies agile? It cannot be a massive exercise to create a taxonomy which has to be fully updated again, after a X period of time. So how do you keep them live? How do you keep them agile? How do you provide for combinations which can move with the way business is moving? That is where the whole, I think, theory of creating taxonomies has gone through a whole transformative approach. So that's why I'm saying that, depending on the volatility that you're seeing in that industry, the way you approach taxonomy creation and how you work with them, that itself has become a skill. And it's not about being a static skill or a static taxonomy. And just on your point on productivity, I think that naturally links in then to the definition of productivity. What metrics am I really valuing? And how can I utilize my standards and my taxonomies to create a delta in metrics that matter? Now that could be the speed at which I'm hiring, how quickly am I able to make my people productive. It could be about the organizational pyramid. how do I reduce the cost of the pyramid by having better power users and better digital adopters. So there could be a number of variables that can impact productivity, and measuring and managing productivity is very, very critical. I mean, it always has been, but I think now more than ever, these are all operating as an interlinked system. So that's what I'm seeing organizations do, really interlinking all of this for it to speak one language, which is the language of business.
Moving on, like with the standards and processes, Parul, this question is for you. What initiatives are being taken in short term and the long term to help employees learn and improve their technology skills? And this is becoming, I would say, there is an era, right? Like pre-COVID and post-COVID. So
True.
suddenly there is a new era. Before ChatGPT and after ChatGPT, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So when it comes to, and this impacts people on the daily basis, the culture, right? How people think. So how do you see this initiative has been taken into short term and long term, where the technology transformation on skills has been adopted by the employees?
Good question, Sujit. Thanks for it. But I'll have to rephrase it, because when it comes to learning technology skills, there is no long term. By the time we reach our learning milestone, the technology has changed. So I'll just say the short term and mid terms is something that we are trying to focus on. And short term, I guess it remains to start with the certification courses through learning platforms is one of the things that we are encouraging. And I think majority of the Indian talent, and to an extent the global talent, the fixation with adding the C++, the CCNAs to your profile is still very much there, So we are trying to encourage that and leverage that, whatever new technologies you want to learn, through the certification programs, through our learning partners, we encourage that. Secondly, there are also in-house learning programs, with the project architects, that if this is a project that we are working on, you have an opportunity to really dissect the whole projects and take the learnings from there on that particular technology. That's also something that we are trying to do in the short term. In the mid-term, I would say incubation center is something that we are encouraging and trying to ensure that there is a stability in terms of the technology skills, that we are sort of preparing ourselves for the future. So incubation centers for upcoming technologies are something that we are also trying to build in-house. Then again in the midterm, I guess going back to how we are innovating and giving our employees and team members an opportunity to really work on a new product or a new service altogether. So that's through our innovation clubs is something that also we are.
Parul, I was talking to one of the customer, and they were saying a lot of initiatives we take in learning and all is all a push, right? And they came up with this interesting concept of democratized learning. So do you think anything which is like more democratized learning and a very intelligent, subtle nudges to tell an employee, and creating that kind of an culture around where it's like an air you breathe, right?
True.
Will really help in the employees for this any kind of a tech skills transformation, right? Because it's not a short-term thing, it's a continuous thing, I would say.
Absolutely.
Right? It will keep on happening. Today there is ChatGPT, tomorrow there will be another GPT format, right? And it will every 2 years we'll see something new happening. So do you see anything around a democratized learning rather than just a push format to the employees?
Yeah, of course. And I would like to take you back to the thing that I initially said, Sujit. It is about, the fixation of adding the profiles to your employee profiles and your internal profile directories, employee directories that we are trying to create. So you have an opportunity, and, rather than making it a push, every skill is available through our learning platforms and our in-house programs. So whatever you learn, you have an opportunity to add it to your employee profile. I would not say that we are totally there, in terms of making it absolutely available to our, each one across the organization. But as you said, in terms of democratizing the whole learning program rather than making it a push, so we are trying to make it attractive, wherein it becomes a pull and people are really willing to, okay, one ChatGPT project is something that I've done on, and even if it is not resulting as any commercial yields, but just the fact that people are able to really learn and there is a conversation around it.
As a CTO, how do you see this technology transformation for the employees, right? How do you ensure that it's happening within the organization? Because as a CTO, you need to always wear the hat of innovation and be ahead of the curve, right? Because your employees or your customers will be looking forward to you for those innovations.
Yeah, as I liked what Amit said. Skills are like mobile phones. Every 2 years, there's either a new version or a new technology. And it is more true in a JavaScript world. Every 2 weeks, there's a new framework that you have to learn, right? So the way we approach that is anything that is client-facing is standardized. Okay, and even in that standardization, what we talk about is as a process, not really as a goals, but process is there. But anything internal where we are new skill development, like whether it is ChatGPT or earlier it used to be data and so on and so forth, that's messy. There is no method to it because there's a lot of experimentation. So even today, if you are talking about GPT, Gartner says you cannot really build a customer-facing portals using GPT. Internally, you can use it. So there's a lot of experimentation that we are going, and there cannot be a structure. There's a lot of experimentation. There's a lot of face-to-face conversation that's happening. Will this work? You put a hypothesis, go and work. It doesn't work. Okay, change the hypothesis. You learn something. And what Edison said, I've not failed 1,000 times. I've learned something that doesn't work, right? So that's a messiness that's in the experimentation. So as a CTO, that's what I need to be comfortable with. Out of 1,000 things that I'm doing, one thing will go to a market, and that'll give us all the benefits and the rewards of whatever that messiness that we have been comfortable with. That's one thing that I would say. Second, how we are dealing with this training, all of those things, standardizations is this. We have 3 forms of trainings. One is a general curated learning path. Again, nobody wants to be sold. Nobody wants to be pushed. So we don't say these are the things that you need to take. And then adding to what she said, certifications is not only for the employees to boast about, which is very true. It is a social validations and everything. But when I'm going on a customer call, they will ask me, okay, do you know about AWS? And I say, I have 5 people who are certified. No further questions. So certification is one. So we have a curated, so for every role, there's a career path, every role, we have a curated learning path and certification, and they like to take it. And when they sit for the performance review, we ask, okay, how many certifications you got? What's the learning path you have finished? And then they know that this is going to happen. So that's one. Second one is, what we do is on project, very specific, contextual, niche learning. There is a project, there is a problem in that particular project, there is an escalation, I want that to be solved. My database is not tuned, it is taking time. Now, he's very specific question. So we ask in a Slack or group, somebody will say, I've done this, or somebody will say, okay, this external trainer will do it. So it's a very specific ask. That's a second type of training, skill development.
Kind of a micro learning.
Very, very specific. We do that. The third one is role plays and workshops. So soft skills, leadership skills, team building skills, it cannot be lectured. It'll have to be built as a role play, as a workshop, team building activities, and so on and so forth. One thing that I have seen missing from many other organizations, which we have tried to bring in here, is immediate feedback. What happens is there's a team building activity and then it's gone, right? What we do is there is a role play. Say, for example, communication skills. We do a mock drill of sales call. Immediately after that, we go and do a retro of that. What you did well, what you didn't do well, you could have done this better, and so on. Whether it is team building skills, leadership skills, all of those kinds of stuff. That I found it to be very, very valuable for people to say, okay, now I understand where I need to improve. And then they are able to do. So that's what I
So you're saying you have implemented some structures, some frameworks for the skills transformation. It can be a tech skills, soft skills, communication skills, all these things. Just one addition to this, when something like you said, the JavaScript which changes every 2 weeks, right? Or something like an AI which comes in, right? And when a bigger transformation is needed because the market dynamics are completely, let's say, changing, right? Where your customers are looking at the market, is, let's say, that completely changes. Something which with in the finance sector, which happened with a lot of different things which coming into the bitcoins and all, right? So how those transformations you adopt to?
So just take COVID. March 1st, nobody wanted to work from home. No, none of the leaders wanted to work from. I want to see you work. I mean, how many hours are you working? And by March 15th, we were all extremely comfortable. You can come anytime you want. You can log in anytime you want. And then you can, and all the managers will have to get used to that. That I will not see my employee face to face. And I will not have a face-to-face conversation. And we thrived it for 2 years. And we did that, right? So I think there is a sense of adaptability with all of us. When you obtain, like most of these managers and leaders, the best ones are like tea bags. When we put in hot water, we become tasty. So if we are put into that particular situation, I think we will grow. It is the job of the management to see how you can create those safe environments. It is challenging, but also safe environment. You can try, you can fail. I'm not going to hold you responsible. If you do that, I think we adapt, and that's how we do that.
Great, thank you. This question is to you as a VP of engineering, right? You're focusing on the customer's deliveries, whatever it is, the product to be produced, service to be delivered. At the same time, the tech skills transformation is happening in between.
Yes.
And there is a culture you have to maintain for your team. There is a transformation happening. And have you ever faced a lot of skilling is done by the internal teams and a lot of culture is built and the skilled people actually are leaving the organization for better opportunities?
Right.
And that's impacting your deliveries. So how do you see this impact of an entire tech skills transformation and too much of learning maybe on your actual real execution?
I think what Alpana and Parul and Joseph were saying, I'm completely concurrent with them. So, in our organization, we have at least 4 or 5 different ways of learning, and in totality is about 30% of the time goes into learning, development and training. So depending on your level, you need to write blogs, internal blogs, white papers, take physical sessions, virtual sessions for your squads and for larger groups as well. And we have different tracks. We have a track where we tell you everything about our policies. We have a track where we tell you everything about the work that you're going to do in your project, and the third track where we keep engaging you about your industry, right? So there's a saying that is going on these days, but you can use that for all going last 100 years also, that artificial intelligence won't replace you. Somebody using AI better will replace you.
Yes.
Right? And that is true with every technology. What we are seeing is, Sujit, that for a pure tech role, 20 years, 25 years back, when I started, they expected you to be really good at a certain coding language. And we used to debate about, is Python or Perl better than Java? Now, we don't discuss that much. We discuss about how much do you know about the domain you're writing code for. And the boundaries are getting thinner on the other side, which everybody is talking. How much do you know about how your application is being used, which is what you call power user, right? So training wise, coming back to that question, right? Training, we have different tracks. We have expectations, like what Alpana said, that you should have clear expectations about that. We have a very clearly defined competency framework, which we all review every 12 to 18 to 24 months, where we go over every single level, the matrix, and we review the language and the examples written there. And because of that, we have been able to let go of some roles, create new roles, or merge some roles. It doesn't mean that we have let go of people, by the way, but we have been constantly doing that, challenging ourselves in that, for example, a small thing, very tactical, but it will give that perspective, right?
So in your organization, to be like precise with an example, how many of the roles you see, right, new roles being fulfilled with the existing employees with reskilling and upskilling? The second thing is, how many of the roles it is with which you have to take the help of the talent acquisition team to fulfill?
Oh, that's a very good question. So I tell you, purely, my team works in day out on the technologies which starts disrupting other businesses, right? So for coming back to your original question, I actually have seen that the attrition rate in my team, in my org, has come down since the time I emphatically started insisting for them to get level up. For me, I need to be a stage ahead, and I feel every industry has to be a stage ahead. It's cheaper to get your employees better in terms of what they do than getting somebody from outside, because that's a risky proposition. You don't know, no matter how many hours you spend with that person, no matter how many GitHub code you go through of that person,
So-
you're not sure about it.
So Ambuj, you are trying to say that a right culture of skill transformation and learning
Yes.
towards the new job role in the industry within an organization will lower down your attrition rate as well.
Absolutely, hands down. And even if you have 5 or 10% attrition, that is bound to happen. And once the person leaves and joins some other place and stays there for a couple of years and realizes that he or she is not growing there, the person wants to come back. We have seen that. So it always pays back to consistently upskill your employees.
Thank you. Shyamakant, coming back to you, how do you see this entire skill transformation impacting the talent acquisition when companies like internal teams come to you, right, for hiring for the roles? Well, how much is the demand for the new roles or new skills which are coming in the market versus the companies are investing internally, as your company is investing more internally, like as Ambuj said, with the right culture, getting the known devils into a better role rather than waiting for the unknown angels to come from you.
True. But I'll tell you, there is a rebuttal. It has to be a combination of getting people from outside with the fresh blood and people from inside, because we have to run the ecosystem end of the day, right? And again, no organization can tell in the last 2 years the way the talent acquisition as a function has gone through the pain of hiring people, by the way, with no shows also. But barring few sector of hiring, which is for sure graduate hiring, we as an organization, we pay a lot of emphasis on graduate hiring. And that too, as we discussed also, about standardizing the hiring. It's not going to be like, if my unit A hire for a software developer role versus my unit B, which is for R&D role, I have to have a different standard of hiring. I have to standardize set of hiring. So graduate is a done thing. Now, where I think we are also investing heavily is the middle layer. For example, we just saw the survey report, from an application developer to becoming an application power developer. Now, that's an interesting shift that we're talking about. Now, if I go to industry, I can really not go and ask for application power developer, because this is something which is like I have to look at an individual having everything inside, And for example, we all know the hiring managers, always the need is as of yesterday. So it's not that you will get a time of your own sweet time. And of course, with every company going into a notice period of 3 months, the moment the demand comes in to the day the individual is going to be productive, it is anywhere minimum between 6 to 9 months. That's a huge time. And I do agree with Ambuj. Investing internally is the proposition. But the question is that, and I'll not take a name of a company, but a year back, that company was probably got a project. It's a like-minded company like us, and they started heavily investing on training people on cloud. Unfortunately, probably the project didn't come, and thankfully Amdocs got the project. So for me and for my team, the better bet is whether I'm going to right now invest or I'm going to go and buy that. So we prefer to buy that because of the pressure and all. But the thing that we learned, that if the strategic workforce team can do an advanced prediction basis on the line of business, what is going to come in from a skill standpoint, from a role standpoint, I think the first and foremost, without any debate, should be investing heavily with your internal people. But the moment we invest, there is 2 aspects. One, we need to ensure that whatever we are investing, we are able to give them that kind of a job. Otherwise, the investor is going to go down the lane, somebody else will take. And second, which is very important, maybe I would like to hear from the panel, what is the impact on the investment? For example, had I went ahead and buy a resource, hire a resource versus I'm investing in somebody where I'm getting the maximum impact. So that's what is very important, and that is actually changing the equation of the game in terms of what we are going to do in terms of, as I said, standardization of training programs also, because I do agree with a lot of things that the panel mentioned about the curated learning, on-job learning, peer learning, shadow learning. I think these are some of the tips which I'm sure is making the resource strong, and they are really able to kind of, deliver what is expected out of them.
My last question to Parul is, when it comes to culture, Parul, okay, you talked about you're setting some metrics in the organization for doing the things. So when it comes to the new metrics or new standards, are you seeing a lot of things around skills? and your internal team, the business users, the CTOs, the VP engineering, everybody is talking around from a business side, hey, we want a skill as an atomic element in the metrics. So are you seeing this kind of a language internally? Because then that would be more related to the tech skills. So is the skills and skills intelligence, skills transformation coming more as a part you want to embed in the culture?
Absolutely, absolutely, Sujit. The whole skill piece, the term skill is the new, I would say, jargon in terms of how we are building the employee profiles and how we are, helping them learn more skills and, go forward in their career journey. And yes, it is a big demand from the CTOs and the VP of engineerings and everybody from the tech leadership team that, I do want a curated list of skills for each of our employees, at least the employees who are in the tech wing, that this is what they are learning, and it has to be updated from time to time, so 6 months to 8 months. So what we are trying to do is to keep an employee profile section wherein, if you have learned anything new, you are able to choose at least from the top 50 drop downs that we are providing, and you are able to add further comments. So this is what I learned it through a certification, I learned it through a project learning, as you said, that how you are trying to democratize and make it available for all. So multiple platforms, you have the option to learn and show it off in some sense that this is reflecting on your employee directory, that this is what you have done. And then that helps when we are planning our projects, and when we are going to, as somebody said, that when you're going to the clients and saying that I have 5 people certified on this, that's it, no further questions. That's then that's the win we get when we are trying to certify people and make it available to all.
Interesting.
So I think there are 2-3 things I wanted to say. When you think about retaining employees which are valuable to you, think about 3 big buckets. And this is coming from a research that we recently did about what drives employees to stay and perform in an organization. Okay, so the first bucket is what we call energy. How is it that employees are deriving energy from the organization? And that is where a lot of things that are being talked about from a learning, training are important. But I believe that it is also about how do you link learning to careers. That becomes really the magic recipe in one way, because learning for the sake of learning, yes, it's great. But when that becomes the key to unlock your career is when it becomes supremely exciting, especially for new age talent. And that is where global experiences, exposure, having access to projects which are international while you're sitting in a hybrid world, all of those are becoming very important. The second is what we call experiences. What are the moments that matter? Is the organization focused on your holistic well-being, hybrid working, policies, etc.? So that becomes the second cluster. And the third is the earnings. That is, how is it that it is linked to your pay, to incentives, to recognition. It's not just about the monetary piece, but also about, am I feeling proud as a practitioner? And am I able to build on that pride by being in the organization?
So one last thing from my side, the tech skills transformations are important. We are seeing an era of AI, pre-chat GPT, post-chat GPT. In the history we have seen, first it was a desktop, then a laptop, then a tablet, then a mobile. It makes our life, and now something is there on the wrist as well, continuously pinging us, right? So more technology doesn't simplify our life, rather it complicates our life, and it generates more jobs. At least a country like India, which has 1.3 billion population, we need more complexity in technology, so more jobs are created. I hope the new chat GPT revolution and AI, the co-pilots of the world, create more jobs, create more confusion around. So there are more jobs generated for the 1.3 billion population. Thank you.
Thank you all the panelists for joining us today.